Marvel DAGGER. Oh, although I may call it Marvel Dagger, although maybe that's not truly correct. That's how I call this game, which is a cooperative and solo-friendly game, and I played it both with friends and also by myself. You will control teams of superheroes based on Marvel lore, and you will go around the board trying to complete missions and to defeat one of 4 nemesis. So the game comes with quite a large number of heroes and 4 main villains that you will need to defeat. And what that means, like what most of everything means in this game, is very situational. So you're gonna have some general rules that apply to everything, and then a lot of text, a lot of unique effects printed on cards. For example, the Nemesis card. Also, each game will have a first strike, which also will set a type of secondary enemies, and you will select or randomly choose a first strike card at the beginning of each game, and you will place it on top of a mini deck of 3 missions that are unique to that villain. So for example, here I set up the game to go against Ultron, and also I decided to have a team up with villains coming from Asgard. And so this is the deck of mission cards that you will try to complete. There is a number of progress tokens that you will be allowed to place on the current mission, depending on what the parameters are. The card tells you what you need to do to complete that mission. For example, to complete this one, I need 4 progress tokens there per player. That's what the tiny icon says. And again, but how do I do that? Depends. And also there is a threat threshold. There will be many game effects with advanced threat on that track there. And if threat reaches the threshold indicated there, then the mission is failed. Bwah, bwah. Also, different game effects will start side missions that will go here next to the board, and it is usually a good idea to complete them, either because they give a reward or because they have a penalty that you remove by completing the mission. And again, it says on the mission itself what that means. When you complete or fail the first strike mission, it is removed from the game. The Nemesis missions are slightly different, because if you complete it before you had too much threat, then you complete it successfully and you tuck it under the top of the board so that this side of the card is visible, and as you can see, it'll give you an advantage. If you fail the mission because there was too much threat before you completed, you accumulated enough progress, then you tuck it under the top side, the top of the board, with this other side showing, and that will make the final showdown harder. The purpose is you're trying to complete the missions, reach the final showdown, and at that point you defeat the villain as the only way to win the game. However, there are multiple ways of winning the game. If your heroes are defeated too often, you lose the game. If you accumulate 20 points of threat, you lose the game. The villains and their minions like to go to the bases, which are these circular spaces on the board with unique effects printed on them. They like to go and rack them, they overrun them, and they place those tokens on them. And if all the bases are overrun, again, you guessed it, you lose the game. So you will move around the board trying to complete the missions, and again, what that means depends entirely on the text indicated on the missions. You're gonna have the Nemesis on the board going around, the minions that will show up in different ways, because that's what the cards say. And also you have a team-up track. There will be effects that will allow you to collect team-up points, which you can then spend to activate beneficial effects. Now, for the characters themselves, each player will control a character. unless you decide to give more characters to a player. Nothing against that. Matter of fact, the solo version, in the solo version, you will control 2 characters. Each character is part of a team of 2. So, for example, here we have Black Widow Natasha and also Black Widow Yelena. So they cannot be on the board at the same time. If you choose this team, you choose one of them to go on the board, and if this character is defeated, then you use the other one. If the other one is defeated, that's bad, because if everybody's replenishment, I can't think of the word. You know what I mean, right? When you have an extra, everybody's spare hero. There you go. If everybody's spare hero is defeated, then you lose the game. Here we have Jane Foster Thor and also Thor. So so you choose a hero as part of a team, keeping the other side of that as your spare hero. But each hero also has an aspect, such as protection, such as determination, but we also have justice, aggression, leadership. And that will give the hero a unique bonus, which is printed here. And I wish it was a little more evident. Sometimes the bonus, I forget about it, and I wish it was somehow, there were icons around reminding you based on when you're actually going to use it. And also we'll have a unique set of slots. And you have action slots on your personal board, of course, and by combining it with a specific aspect, you will have a unique set of actions. You also have cards with different kinds of bonuses. Some are available at the beginning, some you need to activate. For example, this one, in order to use, you need to exhaust it, which is you flip it face down, and then you need to place progress tokens on it in order to charge it. Again. Oh, that one only takes 1 progress token, so that's, well, look at me, I just charge it. And you use it and you do what it says. And here we have, for example, a bonus that in order to be charged requires the expenditure of team-up points, a different currency. And they can be pretty powerful, but again, you gotta unlock those things, unlock those abilities. Now, the general idea is pretty simple. The execution is a bit complicated because, again, of all the unique effects. You will have a number of action tokens that changes depending on the number of players. Usually you have a boosted one and 2 regular ones. If you're playing solo or 2 players, which both mean with 2 characters, you're going to have 3 regular ones. So first we have a hero phase in which the heroes will alternate taking an action each. You can't just take all your actions and somebody else goes. I take an action and do what the action says, then you take your action and do what your action says, and so on and so forth. Some actions have a boosted advantage, which is activated if you do spend your boosted token there. You can still take the action with a regular token without doing the boost. Each hero has the stats of attack, defy, and tactics. Attack, for example, well, it's pretty self-explanatory. Defies what you often use to see how much progress you place on a base, and tack you use to recover energy and also recharge things. Now, when you test one of these abilities because of game effects, you will roll these dice, which are 8-sided, and you will have a success for each symbol of its own type that you roll. If I'm attacking, I roll 2 dice, and these explosions here are hits, and the other ones are not. You also have a lightning bolt, which is a wild success during a test of one of the actions. Also, if you're taking the action in a base that has not been overrun and still has is action visible, see the lightning bolt? That's a reminder that when you take a test in the base, and if you roll at least a lightning bolt, you also get to perform that action. And of course, each hit that you place on an enemy will damage them, and you will use tokens to indicate that. The nemesis can be damaged during gameplay, but cannot be defeated until the final showdown. The purpose of damaging them is that if you get the light to 0 before the final showdown, they don't die, but they're stunned, and so they don't they don't do quite as much damage during the nemesis phase. Because at the end of the hero phase, when everybody's done taking their actions, moving, activating and using abilities, attacking enemies, defying missions, etc., 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 it is time for the enemies to go. During the nemesis phase, first you will advance the threat track. Just the presence of the nemesis on the board will advance it by a number of spaces. Other factors will make it even faster. Side missions, for example, may advance it faster. That's one reason why you want to keep an eye on those. You will also have event cards, and these event cards they come from a deck of 12 cards, which is also your countdown clock for the game. If it runs out, that's another way in which you can lose the game. 9 of these will come out of a deck of generic event cards, and then there are 3 that are unique for your villain for that game. That's why you'll see 3 Ultron cards in there. When you draw an event card, first you resolve the event described in the text, and then you see all of these icons, then you just go through all of them. These icons indicate icons on the card of the villain, so they will do different things. So I'm going to activate that action and that action of the villain, because that's what it says. If the icons are there at all, then this is a reminder, this little blue thing here is a reminder that the enemies on the board activate, and if they're in an area with the hero, they will attack the hero. If they are alone in an area that is a base, they will rack the base, and if they are unable to do either, then they will move towards the closest base. The big bad guy does the same unless you stun them prior. After the enemies activate, then you spawn new enemies. They are coded by these symbols here, and the number of dots under each indicates whether you add enemies of that type this turn. For example, with 2 players or more, I'm gonna add an enemy of that type in location 10 on the board, but I'm gonna add an enemy of this type and this type only with 4 players or more, and only with 5 players or more. And as you can see, things change, and they will spawn in different ways. That gives you the general sense, but also not just a general overview of the general concepts that you will find each game, but again with different heroes, different aspects, and different nemesis and different supporting villains based on the first strike missions. Trust me, there'll be a lot of unique things that happen every time. I even talked about Bifrost, the magical bridge that connects Earth to Asgard, but that's okay, because there's a lot of stuff that I cannot cover in this overview. But I'm going to roll the dice because it's fun. I did. I rolled the dice. I found this game good and enjoyable, which was a bit of a surprise after I read the rulebook twice, and I was a little bit frustrated by how fiddly it felt. The rulebook was both very detailed and very generic, because it cannot tell you about a lot of the stuff, because most of the content and unique rules change based on the villain, on the nemesis that you have, and the villains of the first strike and the heroes. And there's a huge variety of different things that those heroes can do, which is great. But again, the first game, you're going to spend a lot of time just looking at those cards, reading all of the effects. And at the end of that, it's still a bit fiddly. There is that element. It feels a little bit cumbersome, even after playing it several times and I got more familiar with things. just many little moving parts that you always have to worry about, and you have to make sure that you're using all of your effects, and you'll forget about some of those, and you'll forget to turn that mission cards or that side thing, etc., etc., etc. It is a little bit fiddly that way. And very often, we're willing to accept the fiddliness when it comes to thematic depth, but there are also other games that do this a little more elegantly. And maybe my impression would be different if I hadn't recently played Masters of the Universe Clash for Eternia, which has, I feel, a lot, maybe more theme than this one, or at least as much at a fraction of the procedures. Now, when you get past those, again, the action is actually pretty interesting. That's an interesting puzzle to try to maximize all of the different abilities, to go against different enemies, and to spread around the board doing different things. So this hero specializes in something. Well, why don't we send them that way to do the thing that they need? That one goes and defies enemies. This one goes and pummels them in the face. Defy missions, do tactical stuff, charge, recover, pummel people in the face. You have a lot of gameplay options with further customization when it comes to the leadership and the protection and those traits, those profiles that you can add. So it's good. It's good. Now, when you can get it moving, it is definitely good that it works solitaire. If nothing else, when I was playing solitaire, I felt a little more comfortable, because if I've missed a step, I forgot something, well, nobody gets hurt. We don't feel like, oh my gosh, have I ruined the experience for somebody else? Now, a lot of work has been done here to give you a massive number of characters for a base set, for a game, for the main box. Game like this, I would expect to say 8 heroes, something like that. There are more, and how they work in teams is just great. However, maybe that investment in the characters, and you can then customize them with the traits and the profiles. But maybe then that took resources away from creating an equally exciting and large number of villains. Because ultimately, and that's kind of the point, you can go against Thanos with Spider-Man and Miles Morales and Jane Foster and Doctor Strange and different combinations. But he'll be Thanos. You will have to go through his elite guard every time, because that's how you need to do. You can go against Ultron with different combinations of heroes, but he's Ultron. He'll do certain things, he'll spawn those swarms, and the epic battle will play out in similar ways. So for a game that takes a while to get used to really grok, it seems surprising to me that there wasn't maybe a balance between the variety of the heroes that you have and the variety of the missions. So I'm a little worried, I'm a little concerned about the longevity of this game, because once you beat an enemy with, once you beat a nemesis, I don't feel that going against that same mission with different heroes is going to change that so dramatically. And so that's my assessment for Marvel Dagger. It takes a while to get used to it. Then gameplay for a cooperative game without a theme is fun, is enjoyable. You don't see me raving about it, because there's always in the background of my mind all of these little steps and the feeling that it could be better if it was more streamlined. And these days, people play games, buy games to play them 4 or 5 times as part of the pattern of consumption that we have these days. So maybe 4 scenarios, and each you play once or twice with different heroes. That's longevity enough for a modern hobby game. But I need to warn you that, again, it'll probably start feeling fairly samey fairly soon. And this is my assessment of Marvel Dagger.